Welcome to the Cult Bar.
Managed to get that streaming to Facebook as we came on.
Hey, we're doing good, right? So, all right. Hey, Renee. So it's been a while.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. Had a sort of a major event there that kind of took the wind out of our sails for a bit. And now we're back. And
maybe some poor planning on topics.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, but we're back.
Yeah. So welcome everybody who happened to be tuning in with us. Renee, let's start with what you are drinking tonight.
I invented a drink tonight, and then I only had a mug you can't see through to put it in. So I'm going to show you the ingredients.
Okay.
I started out with some tea. Unfortunately, not yogi tea. I thought I might have yogi tea in the house, but I didn't. So I started out with just some regular old lemon ginger tea, a little Basil Hayden, and some hot honey. This is my breath of fire cocktail. So basically, it's like a hot toddy that hurts.
Great.
Yeah. I almost bought Fireball for this, and then I was like, what am I fucking doing? I hate Fireball. So
you know who loves Fireball? My 70-year-old mom. She loves Fireball.
Before it was Fireball, when it was like you could get it in like a schnapps. What was it called? Hot Damn?
Yeah.
We used to do like handless shooters, a hot damn at this party I went to every year with a bunch of vets. So like we're talking like I was the youngest person in the room at like 25, and the rest were like, Vietnam vets and a couple World War II vets, and the ladies had to do their hot damn shots with their hands behind their back. Party with Marines, you're gonna fucking party.
Yeah. Back in the days when schnapps was a thing with Rumpelmints and Goldschlager and all those shitty drinks.
I can't bring myself to try Goldschlager again, but part of me is curious.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on this.
All right, hopefully it doesn't burn my face because it's in a metal mug.
Yeah. No burning your face. We don't allow that on the show.
Oh, it's actually really nice. I should have probably put a clove or two in it, if I'm being honest. That would have helped. But it is the right amount of spice from the ginger and the hot honey that I'm going to have a pleasant time, but also feel like I'm being true to the name of the drink, which I just named after the documentary, The Breath of Fire.
Breath of Fire. So, I'm glad that turned out well, since you just kind of made it up. That's good.
Yeah.
So, mine, I went with called the Downward Facing Dog.
Yeah. And what's in that?
So this is 2 ounces of gin, 2 ounces of grapefruit juice, and I substituted grapefruit juice because I didn't have any grapefruit juice or grapefruits with a seltzer that is orange and blood orange, because blood orange is
much better than grapefruit.
Yeah. Oh God, grapefruit sucks.
Yeah.
But I hate grapefruit. And also 2 ounces of coconut water and then a pinch of salt on top.
Nice.
So it looks good. We'll see how it tastes. And to be fair, the only gin I had. The gin I had in the house was a hopped gin, like hops.
Oh.
So this might be really bad because of the hops, but
also nothing in the drink is what was in the ingredients for the drink. Is that what I'm gathering?
Coconut water and salt.
Oh, okay.
That's surprisingly good. Not aggressive. The salt weirdly is a weird, nice little addition. Like it was just a little sprinkling of salt, like the dude. That's really, really quite refreshing. So I'm glad that worked out. I was worried that the hop gin would have kind of put it off, but anyway, so that's that. So I'm not sure we have any news this month, right?
Not cult news, but cult bar news.
Yes.
So next month is going to be our last month on StreamYard, right? Or is it this month?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of up in the air as to where we're going to be broadcasting. We will be broadcasting. We're just not quite sure yet where. Now, next month, we will still be on StreamYard.
Great. So we're coming to the end of our time on StreamYard, but we're also kind of accidentally skipped over our anniversary. So happy anniversary, Doug.
To you as well, Renee.
I didn't get you anything. I'm sorry.
this show. So this
right, there you go. Yeah. But so while we're moving, we're considering lots of different things about how the show works, and we're working on some different ideas to adjust it, make it more exciting, more fun, more in-depth, more something. So keep your eyes peeled, because there's going to be more news about our news very soon.
Yes. So yeah, that's we will definitely keep you all posted on where we're going to be going. It could be that we're, like I said, we have a bunch of different options, so we're not really sure where we're going yet, but we will be coming back somewhere. So hurrah for that. All right, so let's get into it. So this month's episode is Breath of Fire, as you mentioned, as your cocktail creation indicates. This is about Guru Jagat and Yogi Bhajan of the Kundalini yoga movement. I feel
like I've heard of Kundalini yoga plenty. I had no fucking idea what we were walking into with this one. So spoiler alert, they're all grifters.
And Kundalini yoga was never existed. It was something Yogi Bhajan made up.
Here's the thing. I'm not necessarily opposed to that kind of thing, right? It's like when people have decided that something in their culture can or should be shared, and that they can add their own little flourish to it. But unfortunately, like, his flourish was like Rolexes and fucking.
And Rolls Royces.
Because of course.
Because it's always Rolls Royces for some reason.
Yeah. And so that's the part I have a problem with. Or the rape.
Yeah.
Bad.
Before we go any further, trigger warning. Shall we do those? It's been a while, so we're a bit rusty on this.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Oh, okay. You should. I mean, if we had done the show we planned last month, it just would have been one long trigger warning. We would have never got to the show, but this one's a little bit easier. We're going to be dealing with racism, sexism, sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, unfortunately, religious manipulation,
financial manipulation,
manipulation, a little bit of slave labor, conspiracy theories. And I mean, like, I know that sounds like whatever for a trigger warning, but like, some of us, if you know somebody who went QAnon or in one of the like related movements, it might be tough to listen to, because we're going to talk about that. And I think I got them all that time. I think so.
But as in general with our show, we're going to be talking about cults, and they do a lot of nefarious shit. So just be prepared. So, and as always, if it's something where you don't feel you can handle it, that's fine. We'd rather take care of your mental health. So anyway, so I'm not sure how we briefly summarize this whole thing.
So, but I keep wanting to call him Bhagwan, because
yes, because
Rolls Royces and it's not Bhagwan, it's
Bhajan.
Bhajan.
Yeah,
Bhajan. Okay, so he comes over from India, where he was not anybody special and not even a yogi, but he notices that everybody just assumes that he is.
Yeah, and he was fleeing, getting a woman pregnant in India too. So there's that part of it.
But I do like this idea of, like, there's part of me that's like, fuck yeah. Like, if people are going to be racist at you, take them for all they're worth. But he didn't just take them for their money, unfortunately. So we get this situation where he's, as fucking you, he's sitting up in front of everybody on his comfortable place, kind of like when we did the hot yoga one.
Yeah, they showed it briefly later on in one of the things.
But it's a very similar setup to that one. He's sitting up and he's comfortable and he's whatever, and he's just talking at the people in his classes. It gets mega, mega super famous. There's clips of like Madonna teaching a late night host how to do it.
Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh, Rosie O'Donnell. That was so funny, because when I started to say it, like, every late night host went through my head at once. I was like, it wasn't Letterman. It definitely wasn't Jimmy Fallon.
No.
Rosie O'Donnell, who was actually late afternoon, not late night.
Yep.
So yeah, it got super fucking popular. And then, of course, like, that spun out into just your franchises. And so we have this guy Harjwat.
Harijuan.
Harijuan? Oh boy.
Yeah. We're going to butcher this a lot, folks, so just forewarning.
I know, and it's because I just like I look at them and I think all of them. I'm like, oh, it's
because we've covered several others, so it's like
yeah, but and we did 2 with Osho with the Bhagwan, so I'm like, it's anyway. I'm sorry, not to say that all of the Middle Eastern meditation grifters are the same, but they're not very different. So we get this guy, and he's just as obsessed with the money and power. Apparently, he has a Yonkers accent, which I find hilarious when you consider that Bajak could do it because people were like, well, look, just listen to him. Obviously, he's smart. And then here comes this guy who's like, hey.
Yeah. Sounded like he's from The Sopranos or something.
Right, forget about it. Forget about the downward dog.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's Yonkers or not, guys. I'm sorry. Don't write hate mail.
Yeah, don't.
I'm a California native.
Yeah, but there's a, as obviously he starts us from the ground up and builds it, and it becomes really massive. Like you said, we have celebrities, fucking Russell Brand, of course, pops his dumb head in there. All sorts of people, the famous people, because they're in LA. This is where their thing is. And so in the beginning, we just like the first couple episodes, a lot of background, I feel like. Would you agree with that? Like a lot of background. And the main focus supposedly is on Guru Jagat. Jagat.
Who called herself Kundalini Kate before that.
Before that. So yeah.
Which
but the first 2 episodes, I don't feel like they really do much to really address her a little bit.
No, they sort of just kind of get into like, I guess I think what it was nice to set the table, but maybe we didn't need to set the table for 2 episodes to see the kind of culture that she was coming into, because we hear from her family and her friends in her life before all of this, and kind of you get this image of somebody who is a real firecracker and like seemed to be destined for some pretty big things before she suffered a tragedy outside of the yoga circles and then kind of got pulled in and then pulled her way to the top, I guess would be a good way to say it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. First 2 episodes, like I said, we could go really quick and through all the Bhajan things. Like I think we touched on most of it just from the background perspective. Right. So, the last 2 episodes are where I think we would concentrate our energy here on the show, because that's where the meat of everything happens. We should also say that this docuseries was based on a Vanity Fair article that was done as an expose. And the lady who wrote that article was part of the docuseries. Last name of Phelan. I could not remember her first name for the life of me.
Like for real, for a writer to get that paper like that, and she didn't have to grift anybody.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. So basically with these things, it's a yoga studio, but it becomes bigger than that. They brand, they push marketing, they push workshops. Like a lot of these cults we cover, several cults that we've covered were in this documentary at various pieces.
Actually, yeah,
was funny. Like Teal Swan and Nexium were both in there mentioned. Well, the vow was the show for Nexium. But it's interesting because the through lines for these that we cover are, the pattern is largely the same.
Right.
And as usual, you see all these people that they brought in that got interviewed, all were at sort of crossroads in their life. They just come across this thing at a point where they were just trying to find themselves. And that's the most vulnerable people, and they always get struck into these things.
Yeah, well, and the thing is you want to say something like, oh, this is why mental health services should be more available. But that's also the crossroads that you're at, where you're the most likely to be taken advantage of by an unethical therapist or mental health provider. So, I don't know what the answer is, but maybe the answer is to be aware of your vulnerability in these moments and like ask more questions, even if they're just internal, I feel like, because like I like yoga, but no yoga teachers ever asked me to be involved in any of the shit that these ones that we cover do.
No. And it's funny, like yoga, I enjoy yoga and I enjoy the feeling I get from yoga. And I do normally come out feeling better. but I have never had an experience like these people talking about where they were just like floored the first time. Like, but that's where the magnetic personality comes
I
in.
also think when they didn't get into too deep into what the practice is actually like, but when Madonna was demonstrating it to Rosie O'Donnell, she was doing throat noises that will actually they'll trigger your vagus nerve. And I'm not at all an expert on the vagus nerve. You guys are gonna have to Google it if you want to make sure that I'm actually right about this. But certain triggering of the vagus nerve will give you a very relaxed and euphoric feeling, or it can stop. Like if your heart rate is up and you're feeling panicky, it can bring you down. But we don't really understand how it all works, so it could also do other stuff. And so I think some of it is actually it's based in a biological reaction to the activating the vagus nerve. But then you add all these other things in, including like the bastardization of the Sikh religion, which a lot they had several actually Sikh people there being like, no. I think you have a really good recipe because people are getting something out of it. And then you say, yeah, it's because of all this other stuff, not because we just figured out how to like make you breathe in a way that makes your body feel happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was something I was going to mention was how he tried to bind in Sikh religion into this yoga thing to try to ostensibly to give it some sort of legitimacy, but also a little bit of a different hue to it, I think was what it was.
We get a lot of like if you pay attention to the talk in these circles, like there's a lot of criticism about yoga becoming like a thing you do at the gym, and not having any of the spiritual stuff connected to it associated. But then in this case, he just like went and picked a different religion and was like, yeah, no, this is we're doing this. And it's like layers of taking things that aren't quite what they're supposed to be and then selling it back to white people.
Yeah. And part of this, he also requires like everybody to wear turbans and things like that, like Sikh turbans and things like that, which looks pretty culturally appropriate when you see, a bunch of white people wearing it. And they're white Sikhs, of course, but it's not something we see a lot of.
And I think also it's like it's one of these. This is something that happens in cults as well. It's like they dress in all white and they wear these turbans. They don't really look like any turban that you would see like out and about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so they look different. They're easily identifiable. And what that does is it binds the people involved together, but it also is like, see, they don't get it. When people look at us funny because we're dressed in all white, we're wearing turbans, it's because they don't get it, not because it's weird,
Yeah. The myth of persecution rears its head again. It's a way for them to be like, well, they don't get it, so they don't. They're going to try to us against the world kind of motif, which Christians have perfected. But hey, off topic there. Sorry. I have a lot of thoughts on that topic, which I will refrain from talking about at the moment. But
I did want to talk a little bit too, though, is that this is a really weird thing that happens in these first two episodes. We get a view into how they kind of rode the coattails of the Me Too movement by putting Kundalini Kate, into a more visible space. She's leading classes. She's on social media. She's talking. She's swearing, which means that it's a different kind of spirituality, which we always get marketed, right? If you put fuck in the name of your self-help book, it's not a self-help book anymore. And if you put a white woman who says bitch in your yoga class, then it's different than regular yoga, right? We all agree on these things anyway. But she's supposed to be real. She's so real.
Straightforward.
Yeah. And it's all about empowerment. And, we're part of the Me Too movement. But then, of course, we find out that there's rampant sexual abuse happening, both from Bhagat and Harjiawan, who's her direct mentor. Which, I don't know. I'm not ever surprised anymore when like a group that is ostensibly run by men that is like, we're all about female empowerment turns out being Not
Hey,
that.
we saw it with Nexium. Remember where he made this whole
Yeah.
inner circle of women who were supposed to be empowered, and those
Well,
are the
that's the
women in
first thing
control.
Bhagat did too. He had all these secretaries, which was
The
like so chilling.
Secretariat. He called them the Secretariat, which made me think of a horse, which was
Me
really
up
weird.
for the same reason, but it also gave me a little, a little chills because that's what Jim Jones called his inner circle of women. And it was a very weird thing of like, we're empowering these women. They're running all these businesses. They're making all this money. And it's like, right. But
Are they really?
yeah, we like prove to me that they got the money, but also we know they're being subjugated by this guy who dictates whether or not they're allowed to have sex and who they marry and when they have sex with him and everything else. So I don't know, like there's probably easier ways to make money.
Yeah. Just one other bit of background on this with the Bhajan, who's the creator of this whole movement.
Yeah.
In the first 2 episodes, it kind of set up the structure of how he creates everything. He creates 3HO, which is kind of the basis of their business organization. He also creates Sikh Dharma, which he gets denoted as a religious organization, so he gets to be tax exempt. So, like, he had a plan once he started getting this role. Oh, cool! I can do this, and I can take advantage of this. So there's so many things that they did. They just kept building things. They do a bunch of product, Yogi tea. There was some with kettle chips. I don't know what the kettle chips were.
Yeah,
But
they're like the kettle chip guy, and I'm like, I don't know what that means.
there's a million kettle chips out there. What do you mean?
Yeah, I know what a kettle chip is, but I don't know what the kettle chip guy is.
Yeah, they also had a call security, which was basically a security company that became a part of 3HO and all that stuff, and they guarded Bajan. And
They also had, was it like they were selling printer ink? They're selling toner.
yeah.
And they were scamming people by like sending them less than they ordered, but then at some point they just decided to not send any, which is that's a bold move.
Yeah, just be like, yeah, oh, your money, great. We're not sending you anything. Like initially, I think they said they were charging them like 3 or 4 times what the printer was actually. And then they just said, well, let's just not send them anything. Then we don't have to spend money on product either. So, and he apparently had a lot of within this organization as it grew. He just was a money hungry person. So they did a lot of nefarious stuff, stuff's connected with the drug trade in Thailand. Like there's a lot of dirty shit.
But you're not allowed to do drugs.
No, but they were using it to finance things. So
I think it's really interesting about a lot of these, and I think we talked about are we doing Synanon next? Is that what we
yes,
yeah. So this will come up there too, and we see it a little bit in some of the other ones that we've talked about, where it's like they're offering you something that they know is mind altering and saying like, and now you don't have to do drugs. But it's like, don't make really big decisions when you've come out of a yoga class and you feel lightheaded and woozy and weird either.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, there's some background. The background, you just got to know that he built this organization. He was a grifter and he just made money any way he could. And that's kind of the short and sweet of that part of it. So, like you said, we got Guru Jagat, and she was brought in sort of the Me Too-ification of this organization. It's interesting because they gave her this seat that made it look like she was running, running
like elevated and
but she wasn't. Harbhajan was running it, but she was the face, and she was a marketable face. She dressed pretty stylish, even though she was wearing, white, but she'd all wear a
white blondie t-shirt.
Yeah.
Or so.
And the funny thing was, I remember they had like, and this is part of the turban thing. If you wear a turban, you wear hair out through the back of the turban, which the one Sikh person said that is not how you wear a turban if you're wearing a turban in Sikh practice. So,
I think 2 things I would. Oh, we skipped over where Bhajan sent all of the children away to boarding schools in India.
Oh yeah.
So that also happened. He started dictating who married who. He sent all the children away to a boarding school in India that was marketed like it's going to be this beautiful place and the education and quality of life is going to be so good. And they were eating food that was infested with bugs. They were being beaten. They were drinking dirty water. They were being sexually abused. But some of them did get indoctrinated enough that they didn't leave the organization also. So there's like this weird thing going on there. I think a big thing with putting Kate in charge was that she was obsessed with spending. Like she almost seemed to have like a spending addiction. Or no idea how money works, which is also very possible.
I would guess that it's the former, not the latter, because she lived a life before she got into this where she knew she had to pay bills and do all that stuff. And then now she's thrust in this thing where nope. No, we have no idea.
Yeah,
like nobody's good at it when they first start.
Like it might be one of those things where it's like if you have exactly enough money to pay your bills, then you pay your bills. But if you all of a sudden have more than enough, it almost seemed like someone said if you give her $1, she'll spend 5.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and it was about like, oh, I accidentally ordered a bunch of jewelry for myself when I ordered incense for the shop.
Yeah.
I did love when they got in trouble for this because she was spending all of their money and they couldn't pay their bills and the investors got upset that when they like staged a coup basically while she was teaching one of her like epically long classes where they knew that she wasn't going to be able to know what was happening. And in the days that followed, the thing she was upset about was not that they're basically in a war with their investors, but that she did not psychically know that it was going to happen. That really amused me, but also is like, there's some discussion towards the end of like, how much of her bullshit did she actually buy herself? And that I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit
deflective. Like people might wonder why I didn't know. So I've got to get ahead of it and being so shocked and upset.
Trying to play 3D chess when she's got a checker's brain, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Well, she would say all kinds of goofy shit too. Like, this is an example of it. Just like, oh, I'm mad I didn't know that was coming. Like I shouldn't have the psychic energy or whatever. She said one thing early on in the documentary that I just I had to stop and try to imagine what the fuck she meant by that. She said something about somebody having a 13th dimensional orgasm.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Like that made my brain stop for a minute. Like literally, like what the fuck?
Here's the thing: is that like there is a point at which you don't want it to be any more intense than it is, right? Like you don't need to pull a muscle or like.
Yeah, you don't need to. You don't need to be in traction for the next 3 days. Like none of that.
It's like I had a 13th dimensional orgasm, and now I'm having a 1-dimensional
hospital
stay. Yeah. Like the chains and things like
but that's just an early one, but they taught like later they showed her just kind of spewing all kinds of stuff. And like this is gonna sound weird, but like some of her stuff when they were talking about the stuff later on, and which we'll get into when she kind of went a bit more off the rails, but she sounded a lot like she was sort of rambling like Trump. Like just whatever comes into my brain that's coming out. Here we go.
When I've done yoga classes that were like maybe a little bit more on the spiritual bent than the gym bent, like one of my favorite teachers was just like the angriest little white guy, but he was very into the spiritual side of it. And at the end, when you're doing like you're laying there, coming back in, like coming to Jesus, like I am not fit. That was really fucking hard. What the fuck? They will talk to you. Like they'll give you a little talk. And sometimes it is like, why are you on your phone all the time? Or whatever, right? Like, so that's kind of normal. But what someone pointed out, she would do that at the beginning of the yoga class. And she would just go for a really fucking long time. Rambling on at one point, like towards the end, she's rambling on about flat earthers and all kinds of crazy shit.
Yeah. I love flat earthers. That was my okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do think another thing with they used to do these festivals that they called like Burning Man for like 3HO. So like basically they would
Right.
have these quote unquote festivals, and that was kind of it's that was kind of like a ground for Bajan to kind of scope out who was who and who he was going to abuse, really.
Pretty much.
And yeah, so I just found it funny that they called it the Burning Man of yoga.
The Burning Man of yoga is Burning Man. First of all.
That's pretty fair. That's pretty fair. I've never been to Burning Man. Don't think I'll ever go. I don't
I
think
haven't either, but I know people who've been or who are actually pretty involved, and I don't feel like the Venn diagram is not, slivers on that one. It's pretty,
yeah.
there's a lot of overlap. But I wanted to go back. There's two more things I had to say about the investors thing.
Hmm.
One, the Baba Siri Chan mantra. Do you want to?
So this was a mantra that you would say to cause harm to your enemies, and apparently Harbajawan and Jagat did this when the investors basically said, "We're not doing anything because you guys don't have money."
Right.
And so they did this thing, and like somebody was explaining, it's like it's not like you're wishing them to be murdered, but if something happens.
Right. It's like
It was very again.
you're
It was another mafioso kind of approach.
Yeah, you're not doing it, but maybe they'll get cancer and die. That was a real thing that was said. It was like, whoa. It's like, or maybe they'll have a bad day. It's like, okay, we really need to like narrow the scope of this mantra. Okay. Because like when I'm driving in the car and someone cuts me off, I might like really hope they get a ticket. I don't want that same energy to be like, I hope that you have a heart attack while you're driving and create a 10-car pileup on the freeway. I just want them to get a ticket. That's it. That's as far as I want it to go.
And you also don't want it to be a range that wide either. Like
that's what I mean.
It's like you shouldn't be like ticket or death. No, right. Just I want you.
This guy really upset me, and so I'm just saying I wouldn't mind if he got a ticket, but I also wouldn't mind if he got cancer and died. It's like, oh, we need some perspective here. And then my other thing is that as someone who's really bad at math, I should have been the audience for this, but it didn't quite work for me. When she was talking about how complicated QuickBooks is and how it's so complicated that even the people that they hire to look at the finances don't understand it. And it's basically mind control. And I was like, I've used QuickBooks and I'm bad at math. It's not that complicated.
And just saying like accountants and CPAs don't know what they're doing, that she knows more. And I'm like,
which is like very industry standard. It's not, yeah. QuickBooks is mind control. Math is mind control. I could have gotten on board with if it was just math in general. I could have.
Yeah.
But QuickBooks, come on. Nothing that boring does anything that exciting.
Yeah. Side note, I remember when I was in college, there were two guys in my fraternity who were studying to be actuaries. And I was like, so you just want to be bored your entire life?
Do math all day.
And let me tell you, actuaries make a lot of money. But
because nobody else wants to fucking do it.
Nobody else wants to be that zombified.
Here's the thing, though, is like, it's so funny. I took stats a couple years ago. And my stats teacher was just like in love with statistics and everything about what you are picturing right now when you think, what is a man who's in love with statistics, look, sound, etc. Like, you're correct. He was a fantastic teacher. I got an A in that class. I'm like, oh my God, I've never gotten an A in math my entire life, right? But he was exactly what you think a guy who's in love with stats is like. And there were some classes where I was really struggling to keep my eyes open. I'm going to be honest.
He didn't have the enthusiasm apparently to keep you
Well,
awake.
he did, but I guess, some people are all Clark Kent.
Fair point.
He's just very disaffected, not in a way that was like, oh, is he okay? But just like, he taught an online class while under a tornado warning once, and it was just the same as any other class he ever taught.
Yeah, tornado. By the way,
that's why, because there's not a lot of guys out there in the world like my stats professor, right? So that's why actuaries get paid a lot of money, and it's not because they're dealing with mind control.
Yeah, there's some out there things. We're kind of jumping around, but one thing that we had mentioned that when they brought this Katie in to be Guru Jagat, I'm going to mispronounce that every time. So there's a few things. One, it wasn't just a Me Too movement. She was very good at early on with the online stuff, like doing things with videos, and really adopted Instagram. She adopted Instagram super early. Like, so she was an online presence. So I'm sure they saw that as a way to further everything and make more money. So
yeah, and they pointed out like she was an influencer when it wasn't really a thing, right?
Yeah.
So and that gave them such a foothold, which is unfortunate in the long run, but yeah. And then I think that's one of the things I want to point out is that she did a lot of terrible shit, and we'll get to it, but what was it? I was listening to something and they were talking about like this person was so smart and so full of like life. And if they had just pointed that energy at something positive. Oh, that's what it was. I'm listening to this podcast called How to Destroy Everything about this guy's narcissistic father who like sued half the state and like just all this like levels of crazy that are very hard to comprehend, right? Like when his wife left him, she mistakenly found a support group of people being sued by him with nuisance lawsuits. Yeah. So, but they were saying like the people that he worked with or encountered, even people who were victimized by him, were like, he was a fucking genius. But he was doing a lot of bad shit with that. And I kind of feel like when it comes to, because marketing and especially social media marketing is a talent and it is a skill. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can do it. Most people who can do it cannot do it any more or less better than anyone else, right? Mm-hmm. So like she had a level of talent for that, which is remarkable. And she had an ability to connect with people in a way that was remarkable. And, you have people saying she saved my life. I was in an abusive relationship. She got me out of it. Like, it's kind of a bummer to be like, man, what would have happened if the wing she got taken under was somebody who actually wanted to make a positive difference in the world? Or if the trauma that happened to her that kind of spun her into the lifestyle that ping-ponged her over here, like if that had been dealt with differently.
Yeah.
Because she did go, she was raped in college. She responded to that in a way that is very common, which is to like try to party it away. Mm-hmm. And then she goes into the spiritual movement that, I think most people in her life probably saw it as an improvement until it got out of hand, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's, I think you're right. Just the idea of she'd been able to kind of focus that in a different direction, things would have been drastically different. But unfortunately, they were not. So, I think part of her was her marketability, her willingness. Like she really wanted to make money and all that, and they took that and took advantage of it. So, and the idea that she could market herself online, they saw that as a way to market more online and make more money and do all these things. So, yeah, there was a lot of interesting things. And, part of her trauma wasn't just rape. Her dad left when she was super young, and her mom got diagnosed with Parkinson's at 41.
Yeah, but then she like, they kind of glossed over this. She claimed that her mother had multiple personality disorder. And
okay, I missed that.
Yeah, it was really brief because we see her mother is interviewed in this, right? And
She's a sweetheart of a lady, just the way they interviewed her, the way they appeared in the interview, at least.
Yes. And that's why I'm kind of like, well, okay. I think if her mother actually had multiple personality disorder, the documentary would have said so, because that would be quite the fucking hook.
Yeah.
But does that mean that she didn't, like, was that like, I don't know how to say what I want to say.
Use your words, Renee.
I'm thinking, so you know how, like, okay, like if you have a shitty parent, if you knew somebody who had a shitty parent, but like that parent could be super fucking, like, they're the cool mom when the friends are around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, is that like, could I be off the cuff and be like, yeah, it's like my mom had multiple personality disorder and she was trying to deal with it with every kind of spirituality she could find. Like, I'm like, is there a kernel of truth in that, where her mom came across a certain way but treated her very differently? Is there a truth in that where her mom was a seeker as well? We get a little bit of that. I mean, I don't feel like you end up married to somebody named Rabbit if you're in like normal spiritual groups. Just, that's my prejudice coming into the conversation.
Yeah.
So it's, I really wondered what the kernel of truth in that was, because, you know, she wasn't there to explain why she said that, but her mom was there to be heartbroken, which any parent would be. And I'm not judging that, but yeah, there was a weird throwaway comment about that. And I was like, well, is that true? Or is there some truth? Or is she just completely lying? It's a very weird one.
Well, I mean, she's not unknown to lie. She lied about how she got her name as Guru Jagat.
Well, but then, so here's what's interesting is that this kind of irritated me, because I just listened to a different podcast that was talking about the way that these documentaries work and the way that a lot of podcasts work, where like it could have been an hour and a half, but they draw it out and they go down this whole fucking journey about, well, she couldn't have gotten her name from Bhagan because she didn't use it until like 2011. He died in 2004. And they're like, a whole fucking hour later, they're like, oh, she actually did get it in 2004. But we don't know that she got it from him directly, because you could have gotten it a different way. And it's like, okay, so we can just say some people think she lied about it, but we have no evidence of that. Like, we can just say that. We don't need an hour of suspense.
Well, I would think with someone like her, just from what we know from the docuseries, let's put it in that context, because we're getting one view, multiple views, but really kind of all directed in one direction. And if she were to get a designation as a guru from a guy like Bhajan, who was a pretty powerful person, how would she not immediately start using that instead of going Kundalini?
But they do have the evidence that she could have immediately started using it in 2004. We just don't know how, if she got it one way or the other.
But even if she got it, whether it was through whatever means, she didn't use it, which seems odd. That seems odd.
I agree that it seems odd, but they found evidence that she had the name in 2004 and didn't use it until 2011 or 12. And so to me, I'm like, yeah, that's fucking weird. And it doesn't seem to fit like who she became. But it was a weird kind of thing where they put a lot of detail into what was effectively like,
yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's just something where I think it's more for me. It's like if she had the thing in 2004 and she didn't use it till 2011, 2012, that to me seems weird. Just because.
Well, I wonder, here's the other thing is, I wonder, here's my hot take. This is coming at you after I drank most of that, and I didn't pay attention to how much whiskey went in it. Okay. I wonder if actually that is evidence that he did give it to her. And she didn't want to use it because, if you recall, she ends up suing him for all sorts of sexual abuse. And he proceeds to completely fucking slander her, make fun of her in public classes, laugh at her publicly, encourage people in the community to laugh at her. And so maybe it was a thing that he gave her and she just didn't want to use it because it sucked. And then at whatever point she decided to kind of become who she ended up being, it made more sense to use it, even if if she didn't care. I think there's a point at which you can say, and I don't know where it is, but you can say like there was a point where she kind of stopped caring about her history with the Kundalini yoga community and started caring more about her future with it. And so I wonder if the name existed and is recorded in 2004, but she didn't use it until 2011, has more to do with that journey.
Yeah, we don't know. Maybe Harijawan was like, hey, why don't you come here? We can use you and you can use this title. And
yeah, because I'm sure, we
can
know
redeem this or whatever. Yeah.
Incredibly abusive to her, but we don't know if that extended into the same ways that Bhajan was abusive to her. We know that she's quoted as saying things like she's getting better because she doesn't flinch as much anymore when he screams at her and stuff like that. So, this is kind of a weird one because, like, I think we're getting a more complete picture than we usually get when you see, like, look at this evil woman. But I don't know that that the documentary really scratched the surface there of like what exactly was going on, that every mentor she had in this place was abusive to her. Like where I think there's conversations to be had about like, where do you draw the line? And make no mistake, I think she crossed it, but where is the line between self-preservation and now you're just as harmful as the people that you are trying to take power from?
Yeah, sort of that hurt people thing, but I don't know.
But like we say all the time on this live stream, you are responsible for the harm you cause, no matter what you are under the influence of. So I'm not trying to excuse it so much as like, I think it's an interesting conversation that maybe, because there is a line between watching this stuff for entertainment and watching it to learn something, right? Mm-hmm. And what we could have learned, or we could have started to examine, was where she crossed the line between, advocating for herself and thinking she was taking power from these people who abused her and doing good with it, to where she just cared about making more money and having more power for herself.
Sure. And I think the allure of when you're sort of quasi famous and have lots of money, like there's an allure to that it's kind of hard sometimes. We see it all the time where people, get money and they're just kind of like, they just change because they're like, oh, well, I have this. And
yeah, well, and like, I think actually it's a great point, Doug, because you have people who kind of, well, if I'm always shit on by people with money and now I have money, I can either make the decision to never be that person, or I can have an understanding through my life experience and whatever my brain chemicals say that now it's my turn to treat people like shit.
I feel like that extends to things like parenting. Like the idea of like, if you have shitty parents, you can either choose to be, I'm never being like that. Or you can choose to just be like, well, this is how I was brought up.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of shit like that. Like I remember being, I'm a guy of a certain age and my parents are older. So when I was a kid, like the dads, they all they did with their kids was like play sports, maybe. And so there was a lot different. And when my kids were little, I was very hands-on. I was doing stuff with them all the time because that's how I wanted to be. But that's, again, you make that determination. Am I going to be the same way, or am I going to do something different? I did something different because I wished I would have had that as a kid.
Yeah. And I think too, like the other side of that coin, which I think might play a role in how she behaved, is that most people don't know how to handle large amounts of money.
It's fair.
And it doesn't sound like her family was even necessarily middle class. They don't really say, but it kind of didn't sound like it. I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, she grew up in poverty, because it doesn't seem like that's true. But the way her mom kind of talked about being a single parent and all that, it just doesn't sound like things were like smooth sailing all the time.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening with a lot of people who, their family doesn't talk about money and money isn't abundant, is that when they get money, there's like a scarcity mindset to it, where instead of, I need to learn how to be good with money, it's this like knee-jerk reaction of like, I need to use this money while it's here because eventually it will go away.
Or the opposite, I need to squirrel away everything I possibly can because I know what it's like to not have stuff. So if
Right.
I have the opportunity to have it, I'm going to just, and this goes to wealthy people, billionaires just hoarding more
Yeah.
money, not because they need it, just because, well, I can hoard it. Fucking why not? Like,
Right. No, and I think
we're going all over here.
I know, but you know what? It's funny. We talked before we started. We're going to focus on just a couple things, but it's not working out that way. But I actually think this is a really interesting conversation because when you have a scarcity mindset and you're presented with what seems like an unspendable amount of money, that's where you see people going bankrupt, right? Like famously, I mean, you're talking about being of a certain age. Famously, when Toni Braxton lost all of her money in the 90s. And I wonder if some of it was like in her mind, there was always going to be more money. So it didn't matter if she overspent.
Yeah. Here's another one that's an example, and it's much smaller scale. It reminds me, my wife and I sometimes, like we're eating dinner, we'll watch House Hunters because it's goofy and sort of mindless. But I always find it interesting where you have a couple, and they always get people who have diametrically opposed ideas of what they want to get and what they want to spend. And it used to be like, oh, I'd like that they'd be like $5,000 or $10,000 apart. Now they have people on there that are hundreds of $1,000s apart.
Or they're both agree on the budget, but one's like, I'm going to need 7 bedrooms, 3 full baths, a finished basement.
Yeah. And the thing is like one person be like, I want to stay in this budget because I want to be able to travel. And the other person's like, I want this because I want people to know I made it. And that's important to them. And I just like, it's either, and it's like, well, I grew up poor and I just want to be able to have something grand because I didn't grow up with that. And I'm like, I can see that. But like my brain would never do that. My brain would be like, nope, let's just take, let's say if we get something that's cheaper and if I can work on it and, I don't know. It's sort of that sort of mindset. You know what I mean? Like it could go either way.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think also you combine that with, they compared it repeatedly to prosperity gospel.
That was one of my first notes. This is giving prosperity gospel, like within the first 10 minutes of that thing.
And they said it explicitly a few times. It's like, if you deserve what you get. And so if you have it, it's because you deserve it. And if you don't have it, it's because you don't deserve it. So I feel like there's an element of that too, especially like, I'm not diagnosing Kate Gadget. I can't.
Maybe we just call her Kate and it's easier.
Kundalini Kate. I'm not diagnosing her, but it doesn't sound like she ever got real help after being raped the first time. And then we know that she was sexually abused by Bhajan and then mocked publicly. And I just wonder if there's a little bit of that like unresolved trauma that presents to a lot of victims of sexual abuse of like, I'm worthless. It's like, oh, but here I can prove that I'm not worthless because I have these things that show that I am a good person and that I deserve nice things and I wouldn't have them if I didn't deserve them. So in your face, there's proof I'm good. I just wonder. I'm not, like I say, we don't know her. She wasn't part of the documentary. I could be totally wrong.
Well, you mentioned Bhajan. There's a couple of things I'd like to hit on before we completely move over to Katie. Just some of the fucking crazy shit that guy would say. Now, one of the things you mentioned that before we get to the crazier shit, one of the things he did say, I think it was like every minute of every day, sell yourself for profit. Like that was that's prosperity gospel stuff.
That's so much crazier than prosperity gospel too, though, right? Because like regular prosperity gospel is just like good people have money and bad people don't. So don't worry about having a mansion while people starve. Where this one is like literally sell yourself.
Yeah.
Give yourself up to capitalism.
Yeah. Embrace it, that kind of thing. But they called it like spiritual capitalism or something like that. There was a phrase they used or something like that. I'm like, okay. One of the crazy things he said, I don't know if you caught this. It's such a small one. He says, if you go to the bathroom and your bowel does not come like one cannon fire, you have 5 days of depression. to follow.
Yes, I do remember him saying that.
And I was like, that is an insane thing to say. Where's he getting?
Like, first of all, if your shit comes out like a one cannon rocket, that
Go
sounds
to a
bad.
doctor. Yeah, go to a doctor. That's not
It
good.
doesn't sound good. Also, I don't think I've ever been depressed over my bowel movements unless I've had like food poisoning.
Even then, for me, that would be depression. Be like, oh, thank God that part's over. Hopefully, I don't have to do that again.
Right. Well, I meant like, when you're in it.
Oh yeah,
There's no escaping it.
and
And
you're
you're
fighting
like,
for your dear life.
just fucking take me. Like, but that doesn't last 5 days. That's like 24 to 48 hours max.
And there's a ton more just ludicrous, weird shit that guy would say. But one of the things he also talked about, like everybody got names. So everybody got like Guru Jagat got names. A lot of them were Khalsa, which I don't understand that, but that's a last.
Yeah, they didn't really get
But he claimed that used numerology to determine their names of destiny. That was what their names were called. Their names of destiny.
So I've mentioned this before. I'm a meditator. I love meditation. And I did transcendental meditation, which has some cult-like aspects, and some may argue just is a cult. But we watched the Nexium documentary. They kind of they break it down where you have like the people who are living in a cult, and then you have the people who are like interacting with the stuff on the outside. Yeah. So transcendental meditation is a lot of stuff on the outside where they just teach you this technique. I completely lost my train of thought trying to explain what the fuck transcendental meditation was. Sorry.
That's okay. Something.
Yeah, anyway. All right. Fuck it. Moving on. I'll think of it later.
Yeah. I just think it's like a lot of these cult leaders, they would say, I think sometimes they would just say really crazy shit to see if people would
clock it.
Like, I feel like he would do that a lot. Like, so that's like saying just, hey, if you don't have a really raucous bowel movement, then you're going to be depressed. I'm like, okay. All right. So I didn't really get, did you get where Harajiwan came to prominence? Because I didn't get that at all. It's just like, he was just there. And I was like,
it
okay.
feels a little bit like when Bhajan was still alive, Harajiwan started his own studio, but still under the Kundalini umbrella. And then when Bhajan died, he kind of was the more prominent of the people that came through the Bhajan line.
And he was with him one of the original
followers. Sorry, I just remembered what I was going to say about transcendental meditation. They give you your very special mantra that you're not supposed to tell anybody. It's super, super special. And it's just for you. Except that it's based on the teacher line, from the Maharishi all the way through to the person
lineage.
And the date. So everybody who was in the same class where I learned it with the same person got at least half of the same mantra, but we're not allowed to tell. Which is so funny because Mormons do that too, where you get your name that God knows you by. And you will be called by that name when it's time to go into heaven in the last days or whatever. And it's done the same way. It's by date. So I'm saying it probably has something to do with the date.
All right. However, Harijiwan came to prominence. He did do different kind of, but he did that thing where he's making this really pronounced nasal thing at the beginning, and then doing different kind of stuff. And he was apparently way more intense than Bhajan was, in his yoga classes, whatever.
After meeting, he actually taught a yoga class where Bhajan just sat up there and was like,
yeah, and he was, hey, go take a shit. Make sure it comes out of your ass really fast. Oh, I'm not going to use that in my class. But so
when we eventually get around to starting our own cult, it's going to be fucking wild.
No, it's good. Let's just come up with the dumbest shit. It'll be great. So Hari Jawan is at a place of prominence since Bajan died, and Katie figures out a way to get close to him, so she can approximate power, as people do in these things.
Right.
And it's interesting because she starts adopting the like I said, really at that point adopting the spend, like being very spendy and very, because now she has access to the money. So so she's doing all that kind of stuff. And because of her ability to get people to watch online and understanding how that works, she starts utilizing workshops. And like she would say, they said things like, you would get somebody in and you would have them do some free stuff, or they go online, they see programs that are free sessions. And then the goal was to get them into one workshop. And once you did, you could hook them. And what the funny thing about these workshops were the names of the tiers. I wrote them down. Did you write them down?
I did not write them down. Please.
And so the lowest level tier, which was $800 a year, is Aquarian Women's Leadership Society. Because they thought this is the Aquarian age. So that's part of that, I guess.
It was the age of Aquarius, yes.
Yeah, the next one
to astrology also.
Yeah, yes. The next level up was called Immense Grace. So
which they called the Graces.
Yeah, that was the most expensive one, was the Graces, and obviously that was the Immense Grace was $4,000 a year, and the Graces was $25,000 a year. Right,
yeah. The Graces just reminds me of Heather's.
Yeah,
like it's just 10 of the most evil women you've ever met, all named Grace.
Yeah, and the Graces had a line to talk about their program that was a summation of the program, which I wrote down because it was so fucking ridiculous. The Graces private program spans 12 lunations. This time will be intensive, intimate, and unbelievably alchemical. Unbelievably alchemical, I was like, Jesus Christ.
I only wrote down 2 quotes, aside from when she says she doesn't flinch as much when Harijan yells at her, which is when he told her he can see through walls to keep track of whether she is behaving.
Yeah.
And then I have another one, but it's later. Because this is depending on how terrible a person you are, this is an immensely quotable documentary because so many fucking insane things get said.
There's a million insane things. And, so now we talk about money, but the other thing that they would also do, they would also have them tithe. Like they would talk about openly tithing, and they would tithe the people that work there who made no money.
Yeah.
Like they'd be like, you.
I don't know why this is always a thing with these organizations, because you see this at a lot of them, like 12 Tribes have Yellow Deli, and it's never enough. Like it's never enough to just have people that you're like, you work here for free now, but it's like, oh, but the people who get paid should give it back to me.
Yeah. Like there were some people that got paid, but they got paid sparingly. Like the lady who was, her last name was Medlock. She said that her first 3 months as the basically marketing manager for all of the organization, she got paid $300 a month for the first 3 months.
But you know what? I feel like
working 12-hour days.
That is an indictment of the spirituality industry, and that's what I call it because that's what it is. Mm-hmm. But it's also an indictment of creative work in general, because I've made so little working so much in creative jobs, where it's like, I remember I got paid so little for this job that I worked easily 80 to 100 hours a week on, because there was always a fucking fire to put out. And when I quit, the person said, you never worked for a penny I paid you. And I almost burnt their house down. I mean, I was several hundred miles away, so technically they were very safe, but I do own a car. There was a real moment where I was like, I have been getting paid fucking pennies and busting my ass. And that's what I get told. And I feel like that probably happened here too, where it's just like, well, it's not like you're working hard anyway.
Yeah. So, So, like I said, now we're going to get into the Katie. I think the friends always called her Katie, but the parents called her Kate. So, whatever. We know who we're talking about.
Right.
So, this is where we get into her really coming into her own in this organization, which I want to say was 2012 she starts doing this, but I think by like 2014, 2015, she's really the face, right? I think
Right.
that's the timeline. So, she's people come all over the place to go to her classes, and which is a miracle considering she rambles for 45 minutes before they do anything. If I went in and I spent, all right, I'm going to spend $150 on this yoga class with this really famous yoga instructor, and I had to sit there for 45 minutes while they were babbling on about 13 dimensional orgasms, I'd be like, can I get a refund? Like,
I swear I get the two things that I can't handle are when people are annoying and when they talk too much. And she was both in these situations. So it's just like, can we like move on? We're here to do yoga.
Mhm. Yeah. So, I said she's really prominent. They do a lot of things where they're promoting things and gathering money. They have a gift shop at this Rama. What's she? Rama. That society.
Yeah, it was.
But it was like a academy. The Rama Academy is what
Oh,
she
that's
called
right,
it.
because I didn't want to call it. What did she say? I didn't want to call it Rama Yoga because it's more than that. It's an institute.
Institute. Thank you. It wasn't academy. Institute.
Well, and remember also that her other weird word thing. Oh, everything is techno. So yoga is a technology. It's like,
Oh,
well,
that was. They kept calling it yogic.
I think yogic is a real word.
I'd never heard that. So it might be a real word. I had never heard that before.
I
They
think
called it
like
a
I've
yogic
heard of like
technology.
yogic breathing and stuff like that, but like, I mean, who knows if they're using any of these words correctly, because they're also saying that that if you do enough yoga, you'll get rich.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah. So maybe we don't take those people at their word about what this is. Because anytime you say something like a practice like this that is with your body and you call it technology, I feel like that's a giant red flag.
oh yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there in just a minute.
So now that we have Katie becoming more prominent, she's the face, and things are going seemingly well for Rama and everything. They're making lots of money. Not well for the people that work for them or the people that are being abused. I mean, like in the organization itself.
Right. They're
So,
making money.
yeah, lots and lots of money. So now we're getting close to where I believe it's in one of the things she does that's incredibly bad, amongst many things, but like she would do one-on-ones with people and basically implore them to go to their deepest trauma.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of like an open session of yoga with a bunch of people would just mock them about these traumas in front
Yeah.
of publicly mock them for these people who were just thinking, oh, I get this one-on-one with this famous yoga person, like they're going to help me.
Yeah.
And then you get up and they're like just shitting on you publicly. Like, how demoralizing. Like, that's
I
terrible.
also it's just so such a weird thing too, because I had to watch this documentary that I really hated. I won't name it because I hated it so much. I had to watch it for school, and one of the things is like one of these, and they bring a motivational speaker into school, and they like tell jokes and get the kids all riled up, and then they do whatever their thing is. And the thing this guy did would ask kids who had been bullied to come up and talk about it in front of the whole fucking school. Yeah, and there's like a kid bursting into tears, and I'm like, what fucking happens when this guy leaves at the end of the day and these kids go back to school after that? Like,
They're going to
you
make
can't
it
do
worse.
that to people. And I feel like that I had the same feeling watching the part that you're talking about, where it's like you can't. No, like nobody except for people who've actually been trained in dealing with like people's like actual trauma is should be getting people to relive their most personal traumas, but then to mock people about it afterwards. And like, I mean, what the fuck is the point of that? Like, oh, we can all laugh about it. It's so funny. Like,
feels a bit like that Teal Swan shit when she would do that in stage with people and just have them relay their most vulnerable shit and then just be like a real dick to them on stage. Like if it had that same sort of feel. So yeah, that was terrible.
and then you go back to what I was talking about when Bajan was making fun of her to these classes, and they were laughing at her for suing him for the sexual abuse. And it's like, it gets harder and harder to have any sympathy for what she went through at the beginning, because you're like, you had every opportunity to not do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you did it.
For money.
For money.
Like. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like that's why Bajan was doing what he did to her.
Yeah.
In those classes, it was to protect his income and his notoriety.
Yeah. It's but it's interesting. Her patterns were very similar to Bajan as well, like just kind of doing that sort of awful shit. And there's other things that are similar too, which we'll get into with her. But at the end, Bajan had a load of health issues. Like, and the thing was, is he would promote these healthy living things, and then it said his favorite food was Taco Bell, and he never did any yoga.
It was Taco Bell. Okay, here's the thing. I was waiting for this to come up because I almost gagged. I
know what you're gonna say.
Taco Bell's a weird food where, like, if you don't explicitly want Taco Bell, you would rather eat literally anything in the world. But if you explicitly want Taco Bell, it's the only thing that'll do. Uh-huh. And most of the things taste pretty much the same.
Yes.
So on the one hand, what I'm about to say isn't that crazy, but on the other hand, it is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. He would order such large amounts of Taco Bell such that he would have leftovers. And he would have one of these poor fucking people who just wants to learn how to do yoga, mix them all together and mash them into like a fucking paste of Taco Bell. And then he would eat the resultant paste. It had to be the consistency of paste.
Yeah.
It had to be, because like the refried beans, the different textures of fucking tortilla getting soaked in all of that overnight. Like, oh, the lettuce. A lot of Taco Bell stuff has lettuce. There's no amount of fire sauce in the world that fixes that.
Yeah. So
did he, like, I need to know now, did he also pour like Baja Blast over the whole thing?
Or just packs and packs of hot sauce?
Yeah.
Like just
that's part of the experience, though, is the hot sauce. So I feel like he definitely had the hot sauce.
Oh, no hot sauce for this guy for that stuff. No thanks. I'm not doing that. So, but anyway, the point I'm making there is Katie follows a similar pattern towards the end.
We do not know if she ate Taco Bell paste, but she
but she had said at one point that she had the organs of a 17-year-old, so she could eat whatever she wanted, which, like, what a line. Organs of a 17-year-old, like.
Okay, so that's just not true. That's not true. My teenager loves this dish that is served at a local restaurant called a hot Cheeto burrito.
Okay.
I haven't tried it. Hot Cheetos make my teeth hurt now that I'm old.
But, welcome to old age.
Right? But my kid loves them. And yet, even at the ripe old age of almost 15, can't do it more than once a week. There's no such thing as being able to eat whatever you want. That's a lie.
Yeah. Well, all right. So moving on. Sorry, this is just something that his thing that he was eating Taco Bell and him smushing it into a paste for leftovers.
I just can't with that. It really shook me to my core, Doug. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to eat Taco Bell again. And then what am I going to do on that one day a year when Taco Bell's the only thing that I'll do?
I will give you a hint. Eat the hard shelled tacos. Oh,
I don't like those.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say then there's a different texture, and you don't think about being mushy. So
yeah, I just don't like chingadera. White people taco. I can't do the crunchy taco. I'm not saying that anything at Taco Bell is authentic. That's not what I'm saying.
Nothing's authentic there.
I'm saying specifically hard taco shells are a no-go for me.
No, I will go with the hard taco shells more than not because weirdly, flour tortillas are crazy high in sodium. And I am on a low sodium diet, so I get the taco shells because, like, okay, well, cool. Regardless,
you want Mexican food, like real Mexican food, not.
I make far better Mexican food at home than that place makes, but sometimes you're on the road.
With no issues whatsoever, believe that you, as a white man in upstate New York, make better Mexican food than Taco Bell. I have no issues believing that at all.
Well, it's not just that. It's like I go, like I am a recipe hound. So when I make something, I always make it to a recipe at least once, how they make it, because I want to see if that, and then I will adjust afterwards. But there's a million recipes online, and I usually try it if I'm going to make some dish that's a dish like it's, whether it's an Indian dish or it's a Japanese dish. I'm going to go to somebody who's of that origin and look at their recipe and go, okay, I need these things, and I make it the way they say.
Maybe this is our new format, Doug. Maybe we just make a good food and talk about it. No.
Dude, I love cooking. I love cooking. I love cooking. So I would be totally down for a cooking show of some sort, of just talking about food we made, so I can salivate.
Bar and grill, and then we'll just
shoot hard colts into it.
My cupcake is called.
Oh, not baking. I don't like to bake.
Well, that's okay. You do the baking, or you do the cooking. I'll do the baking.
All right, great.
I like to cook too, but
settled.
Yeah.
All right. So now since we're at this point with Katie, let's get back to her. It's getting into the COVID times.
Oh boy!
And COVID is where it just.
To be fair to her, we all went a little bit crazy.
I think we're all still a little bit crazy from COVID, to be honest.
Yes, and she had a massive head start. So the second quote that I wrote down is, the reason you're being told to stay home because we're actually in an alien war. You should be asking yourself this question.
I wrote that down too, because I was like, alien war.
Which maybe. That was my favorite moment. I just like, nothing foreshadowed that turn.
No. And the thing is, maybe she's a bit of a prophet, because we did find out from the government that there are aliens and they live in the ocean.
It's so fucking funny. Like, maybe our new format is me getting into like my geekery with alien conspiracy theories, because I don't really believe them, but I enjoy like playing along until they say something so egregious that I'm like, you ruined it.
Yeah.
But
that was fun while it lasted.
There is this guy, I forgot his name already. It's so funny because he's coming to teach a workshop here, and I was like, why do I recognize that name? And then I was reading more, and I was like, oh, he's the guy who wrote a book with Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 about how aliens. I'm sorry, it's a series of books, but I only have one of them because I just had to. Okay. What's happening with aliens is that it is a war between good and evil gods for the souls of Earth.
Souls.
I have not read it yet, so like there's probably a lot of nuance there, but that's the basics of it. So when she said that, I was like, oh shit, there's at least 3 people. At least 3.
At least 3.
Anyway. Peter Levenda is the guy. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. So part of it is because she's a yoga studio. She needs people in the studio, and she can't make money as much. Well, she can make money online, but not as much. So
hard.
I feel like this is where the pressure starts really building for her, because now she doesn't have this steady stream of cash coming in like she did.
When she had a steady stream of cash coming in, she was overspending that.
Yes.
And now she doesn't have it coming in.
Yeah. And so she, like a lot of people, turned to making podcasts, and had like a Holocaust denier on her podcast. They said that she would have parties. Like she would have parties. Like,
sorry, I just realized what I did. I said ick instead of Ike.
I would. Well, it looks like ick, and for somebody who's a Holocaust denier, that's fucking valid. So she apparently would have parties to defy the COVID mandates and hand people ivermectin at the parties.
Yes, could you imagine? Unfortunately, we know because of the ivermectin thing that these people they're not crazy because of parasites.
Just like, wow, just here's some ivermectin. You're denying COVID, but at the same time, you're taking ivermectin to help yourself with COVID. That was always the funny thing to me.
She had someone on that was talking about like eating bleach too.
Yes. I don't know who that woman was, but she may no longer be with us either.
She literally drank bleach, so possibly not.
Yeah. Well, this is also a point where they came up with a term conspiritualist, which I think is a fabulous fucking term.
Here's the thing is that if you were calling yourself a conspiracy theorist, because she does this, remember? She's like conspiracy theorist, blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah.
If you're calling yourself that and you're not like your tongue is not in your cheek and you're not like, no, I'm just kidding. That's really bad. Like, I can't, like, conspiracy theorists don't think that they're conspiracy theorists. They think that they know something other people don't. That's not the same. Like, it's almost crazier to acknowledge that it's a conspiracy theory and you're all in on it.
Yeah. And I sometimes that feel like the conspiracy theorists are the same kind of folks that are like preppers. They want to be right about something you're not right about and be able to go, haha, see?
Yeah. And that's what I mean when I say, like, I like to engage with this like UFO alien stuff. I go into it like, so when I read a mystery novel, I don't try to solve the mystery. I want to get to the end and look back and be like, oh shit, good job, right? So when I watch,
you and I both, who doesn't do that? My fucking wife. She's got to figure it out, just figure it out. And I'm like, why are you doing that?
I watch Harlan Coben fucking shows on Netflix, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. It's like,
first can you shut up?
You're fucking right. We both know you're right. You ruined it. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm the same way with my.
Hey, let's have your husband and my wife watch stuff together, and you and I watch stuff together, and that way we don't get frustrated.
I thought you were going to say have our spouses do their own live stream.
But that would be hilarious.
It would just be the crazy shit that we talk to them about.
I will say that my wife does not ruin things for me anymore. Like she just knows to keep her mouth shut. And then afterwards, so did you figure that? Yeah, I knew that. And like blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay.
Like we need to get them to watch things together then, because she needs to train mine. Anyway, when I watch the alien stuff, that's kind of how I'm engaging with it. It's like, I don't want to solve the mystery. I know that this rando on Netflix doesn't have the answer. So I'm cool with it. Just like, go for it.
Yeah, give me your craziest take. Let's hear it.
Yeah, pull me in. Oh, they're in the ocean? Sure. Like, fuck it. They're in the ocean. But inevitably, every single time I get burned because they'll pull one of these things like
alien war in the middle of COVID.
You're in COVID is because the aliens are at war. And I'm like, oh, you ruined it. We could have had so much fun together.
This could have gone for a while.
Yeah, it's like I was going to go to bed tonight and wake up and no longer believe anything that you said. But in this moment, man, we had something. We did, and you ruined it.
Okay. So everything's going off the rails for her. She's just full on I think she's QAnon at this point. Like,
he's coming out with some very QAnon shit. Yeah. I mean, she just rattles shit off. So who knows where it's coming from exactly.
And in this time frame, she actually confesses that she never met Yogi Bhajan.
Well, this is the other thing though, is like, is it a confession or what?
Well, she kept saying that, and she was with Bhajan at the end for just a short time, and then she says, well, "When did I ever say that?" Like I'm like,
what's like? This is what's interesting to me with someone who lies so much about so many things. It's like you can't ever figure out what the motivation for the lie actually is. So you can never figure out which one's the lie.
Like I would think that
him and he settled with her.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where, and then she, like, to me, it would seem like if See, I thought it was somebody else who sued him. Maybe I misheard that in the show.
So there was her
and Mahani.
Another person who wrote a memoir.
Mahani. Well, there's also Mahani, who is the daughter of one of the original followers, and she talked about and she did sue him and all that stuff. So, maybe that's what I was thinking of. But like the idea of being like early on, being like, yeah, I got my name from him, and I was with him for a short period, and then it being like I never said that. Like,
yeah, but I'm like,
okay, like.
Not even I never said that, but why would you think I said that? Which is like, because you said it.
Yeah, we're not just like plucking that out of the air. You said it.
The words came out of your mouth, and we were like, okay, and nobody actually believed you. So it's weird that now you're pushing back. Yeah, I don't know. That was the part I got really fascinated. Like, man, I wish we could get in her head, because
yeah, well, we can't anymore. But
no,
yeah.
well, we haven't gotten there yet. Spoilers.
I think everybody kind of knows we're getting there. But so as everything's unraveling, it's interesting because you can see her, and I'm going to try to phrase this in a way that doesn't sound bad, but you could see her physically, clearly she was not taking care of herself.
She's not as active, sure. But the other thing I noticed too is like when she was talking, I think it was to the lady who was talking about drinking bleach. That lady, her face just looked unhealthy. There was no like literally no color in her face, but the makeup
she looked gone. Yeah.
It was weird as hell. But if you looked at Kate in that side by side little video, like we're doing, she didn't look that much better color wise.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, she had a pretty normal. It's not like she started out as so white you could see like every fucking vein under her eyes or whatever. She started out as pretty, I guess, like average white lady, not too light, not too dark.
Yeah.
Normal coloring. And then eventually she just like kept getting paler, and like not even paler, like gray.
Yeah. Well, at least she didn't turn blue. She didn't. Like, at least she didn't turn blue from drinking whatever that one lady we covered.
You'll see.
Yeah. All right. So there was a bit of thing that I had, like her mom and her stepdad said that at the end she was basically being fat phobic about her being 250 pounds. Because the stepdad, her body wasn't built to carry 250 pounds. And I'm like, you don't have that was a dumb thing to say. So,
yeah, but she did not break her leg because of her weight.
No, she didn't. And she tripped and broke her ankle, she was in Berlin when this happened. And here's where this is the physical part that I personally think is where it really went wrong for her, because she refused to get surgery in Berlin to fix this ankle. And I'm like, and then she flew, and you don't fucking fly when you have something broken that could possibly throw clots.
Especially not in your legs.
Yeah. But she does manage to get to LA and get surgery. So she does make it. But I think that plane ride, I feel like that kind of fucked her body up in ways.
I mean, here's the thing too, is like once you like, it's not like you get on a plane and it creates a blood clot and you die.
Yeah.
Like shit knocks around in your body for as long as it feels like it.
Yep.
Doing it, like we're all kind of time bombs, really. But some
you're not telling that to anybody who doesn't know that very well.
Right. Well, exactly. Happy anniversary to that too, when your body was like, fuck you.
Yeah. I'm very acutely aware of that, unfortunately, and aware of that at almost all times, which sucks sometimes.
But my body's time bomb went off when I was 19, so like yeah.
So you've been dealing with it longer than I have. So like I said, she got to LA, she got the surgery, and then it looks like looking at 12 days after the surgery, 12, she has a pulmonary embolism,
which is often caused by blood clots.
Yep. So basically that was the case. She also, I forgot to say, after her surgery for her ankle, the day of she got out of the surgery, she went and on social media and started promoting this band White Sun.
I know.
Like, hey, you just got a surgery. Fucking give your
She
day a break.
also tried to be like, they don't want me doing this. It's like, I don't think that a doctor came in and was like, specifically, don't make a video. That's not like a high
energy thing to do.
Yeah, it's like, is it now while you recover? I don't want you to lift your phone up.
Yeah. But that's when she has the pulmonary, and that's when she gets a bit dark because now she's thinking about death. And she did talk to her parents near the end, and basically she could tell she was scared. One thing she asked her parents for $600,000 to buy a 20-acre farm in Washington State. Like, do you think your parents just have here's 600,000 going by?
I feel like if I had $600,000 to spare and my kid was like, "Can I just have it?" I'd be like, "Oh, no,
no.
I didn't get $600,000 by giving it away to people who famously overspend."
Yeah, not gonna do that. Sorry.
But what I wonder, and again, like, there's so much we're never gonna know, but I wonder if she did get told, like, "Hey, there's a problem here."
Yeah, might be. They might be like, "Hey, you got to pay attention because this isn't going to go away."
Because I feel like if I had my surgery and it was fine, I would be like, okay, well, it was an ankle surgery. It wasn't heart surgery. It wasn't brain surgery.
Yeah.
So to go from like, oh, I had surgery on my ankle to now all I can talk about is death. I mean, again, she talks about a lot of crazy shit. So who knows? But it's kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, then 4 days after the pulmonary embolism, she actually has a heart attack and dies at 41 years old. 41. Now, it was interesting to me that as they showed the sort of death certificate, and it was pulmonary embolism, heart attack, and something else. So it seems like she had another pulmonary embolism that actually caused a heart attack, because that does happen if you get a clot and it just fucks up your heart and everything. So 41 is a fucking young. I was 50. I was 50 when I had mine, and that's young to have a heart attack.
I might have a heart attack right now because the end of my breath of fire has a lot of hot honey concentrated at the bottom, and I just took a mouthful of it.
You're like,
I mean, I just feel like I can do it. I can get through this. I can do it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just feel like it's interesting because a lot of the people in the show seem to try and want to like join the idea that she didn't live very healthy with the fact that she had these pulmonary embolisms. I feel like that's kind of a crapshoot.
It is.
Because if you are a woman who's ever taken birth control, you know that they want you off of it after 35 because it causes blood clots. And you get told about going on airplanes and that causing blood clots. And so it's kind of like, maybe she just got really fucking unlucky. Like, it doesn't sound like she was living well, but plenty of people eat like shit and live like shit and live past 41. I'm halfway there.
Yeah, there are people that I see that like I eat really healthy now because I have to. And I ate like shit before I had my heart attack. And I readily admit that I ate like a trash panda and I drank way too much and I did all those things. And now I don't. But like I see people that are just chugging 5 bottles of Mountain Dew a day or some fucking Red Bulls or Celsius, and they're just eating all the worst shit they can, and they're just chugging along. And sometimes it's just a crapshoot. It's just a crapshoot sometimes.
And one, it's just like, what exactly was she doing that would have caused blood clots specifically? Which, it's just like a really weird. I don't know. Like if she had gout and be like, oh well, she shouldn't have been eating those organ meats, but she, like
stay away from the awful.
Right. It's like, anyway. I mean, I do think it's worth noting that at the end you could see her skin was sallow. Mm-hmm. It did not look like a normal aging process, which, again, some people are just fucking unlucky. Not everybody's stuff is as elastic. but she didn't look good. But I don't know that that is related to what killed her, because we know that she fucking broke her leg, got on an airplane and had surgery, like boom, boom, boom. And that's a bad idea.
Yeah. So obviously they have a service for Harijuan basically deifies her at the service.
So weird.
It's so weird. The only person at the service is her friend who came in and just basically kind of talked about the dichotomy of her and how she was a good person and all that stuff. I think the end of this docuseries, they kind of basically try to make it seem like she was just kind of a person who was lost. And
I mean, she was, but also
did a lot of shitty things.
Yeah. I think it's like, when her parents, or her mom and her stepdad and her like best friend from childhood, are talking about her, I think that's really valuable, because I'm sure we've talked about this on the live stream before, and if we haven't, I'm sure you and I have talked about this before, where it's like we have this idea that like every evil person is like Charles Manson, where you could kind of look at him and be like, ooh, he looks crazy. But like the reality is that most people who do bad things are people that just do bad things. And so, putting that line of like, look how bad she was, without like the people who cared about her, the people who knew her before she kind of started to turn into what she became. I think it's really valuable, because you hear people who would say, and it's relatable, I feel like, but it's like, oh, I mean, yeah, you should believe the victims, but like, I know them really well, and it just doesn't make sense to me. You have that thing where people just don't really like grasp the way that just bad people are normal people who either get caught up and choose to do bad things, or just choose to do bad things. Some of them don't even get caught up in it. And I think it's worth talking about the ways in which she got pulled in and abused herself, because that's part of the story. That's how we get to the end. But she was also just a normal person.
Yeah, and she did some really awful shit, and like she also covered for a person who was really terrible, and that's also probably that might be out of self-preservation, because her livelihood was tied to this whole thing. So
yeah, we don't know. And I mean, like the reality is that what you hope is that that you yourself or the people that you care about would not do that.
Right.
That they would choose to lose their job over doing that. But when someone does do that, you have to accept that that's still the same person that you had positive interactions with or positive opinions of.
Yeah, and there's a line between being like, well, that person can't be bad because I've always they've always been nice to me. Like there's not that line. It's just like these people were all very much aware of the bad things she did.
Oh
But
yeah.
also said there was good stuff too. And like you're right, evil people, like really evil people, are rare.
What I guess I'm trying to say is like from the viewer of the documentary's perspective, I think it's valuable, because when we make it out that people are either good or monsters, we have a really hard time accepting all the good people we know who do monstrous things.
It's the same thing where you go, all right, so basically we know now almost everything is a spectrum, almost everything.
Yeah.
Like everything. And so like the people who are just demonstrably evil from the giddy up, those are extraordinarily rare. The people that become evil because of circumstance, pressure, like a million other things, upbringing, there could be a lot of different things. People do turn that way. But you're right, there's still people who had certain people who felt good and safe or happy with them. Doesn't mean that they were entirely, they just did some evil shit.
It made me, a few parts of this documentary made me think of the one we did, which was the documentary Kumari, where he's pretending to be a guru, and he gets stuck in this space of like he was trying to prove a point, but now the people actually depend on him.
And he feels terrible.
Yeah, he feels bad for tricking them, but then doesn't know how to pull the veil up, because it's going to crush them. And it's a really fucking good thing he was a filmmaker who had a budget and probably some kind of fucking like agreement for the end of it, because who knows how that could have went.
Yeah.
With all these competing pressures, he might have just been like, I guess I'm a fucking guru now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not making a judgment on that filmmaker. It's just, there was a lot of competing shit going on inside of him, and it would have actually probably been easier for him to keep faking it.
Yeah, probably. So yeah, that's the documentary. But another thing you and I definitely want to talk about now that we've gotten past the docuseries is something that we've seen time and time again.
Yeah.
And it is the wellness to alt-right pipeline. So I would like for you to start, because you have a really great sense of this, much more than I do.
Yeah, well, I think they do a great job of kind of outlining it in this documentary as well. It's like so speaking for myself, I mean, I don't trust the fucking government. Right? Like, what? I mean, I was in the military, okay? Like, I do not. I've been there. They fucked me over. Like, I don't trust the government. I don't think that, like, if my kid came home from school and said that the teacher was wrong about something, I'd be like, well, let's confirm that, because it's very possible your teacher was fucking wrong about something. And I don't trust the narrative I get from like the media as a whole. I want to see the other sides of it, right? And they kind of present it like that's what sucks these people in. And I think it's that thing where you talk about this very fine line, right? Where my distrust is like, I will take what you have to say from the White House press conference or the news article or whatever it may be, and then I will go look into it for myself, and I will hear different perspectives and I'll figure it out. Whereas what happens with the wellness to QAnon pipeline is it's like, well, I had all these health problems and the doctors didn't believe me. And so I turned to yoga and essential oils and, ashwagandha or whatever, and it worked for me. Now I'm rejecting everything, including vaccines. Or I fell for the vaccines cause autism thing, which people don't realize this, but at the time, that was considered fact when it first came out. People were just like, yep. I mean, I read about it in Time magazine. But then you get all these people together who like, well, I don't trust medicine. Well, I don't trust the government. Well, I don't trust anything. And they're all talking. And it's kind of a mix of like an echo chamber and an improv class.
Yes, and you mean that?
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, I think vaccines cause autism. And it's like, yes. And they're putting a chip in your arm. It's like, yes. And the chip in your arm is to track you because they're going to round up, it's like it grows. And what we know from a lot of scientific studies they've actually done, like on the YouTube algorithm, is that young boys will sit down and they'll watch a video about how much it sucks that the girl you like doesn't like you back. And it is absolutely tepid. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, yeah, it fucking sucks, right? But then the next one will be like, I mean, isn't it kind of her fault? And then it'll go, the videos that get recommended to these kids goes and goes and goes until they are now watching fucking Andrew Tate and have gone full fucking, red pill.
Yeah.
And so if YouTube can do that, imagine what a fucking massive community of people with all sorts of different ideas that fit this idea of you can't trust anybody, but I really want to be part of a community. So I guess I trust you. Like, I really think that's part of it. I don't know if I did the job you were hoping. I don't think I was clear.
No, I think you did. I think for me, when I look at this, it's like there's, like I said, distrust is a big part of it. So like if you're saying, like, for instance, a lot of people are scared of medicine. Like, for instance, like, oh, meds, I want to get off meds. Well, like for me, I take 7 pills a day and those pills keep me alive.
Yeah.
And they have kept me alive for 3 years. So I'm going to continue to use them. But there's people who are on things like whether it be something for their mental health. And somebody will say, well, you don't need that. You just need to do this. And you take this class and you listen and you do these things and you breathe or you do all these things. And somebody thinks, oh, cool, I don't have to pay for meds and I can just get it for this. And I feel like it starts innocently enough.
When you also have an issue too, where it's like, in general, I don't think most people have the best relationship they could have with their primary care physician. But wellness industry mostly brings in women, and women universally, like if you know a woman, you know somebody whose doctor didn't believe them about something that ended up being true.
Yep.
You know somebody who's been told that the reason that their fucking foot hurts is because they're 5 pounds overweight or whatever. Like, so there's an earned mistrust.
Yeah,
Then,
for sure.
you know, you talk about meds, it's like, oh, well, you know, I'm very lucky that the meds I need to take don't have shitty side effects, right?
Yeah, there's that
But
too.
like, if the ones that I'm taking didn't work for me, all of the other ones that treat what I need it for have shitty fucking side effects. And you're making a choice between like which shitty feeling do you want to have? The one you're trying to fix or the one that fixing it causes? And I can see that being like, they're making us sicker because I had a fucking low level depression, but now I can't enjoy sex and I want to kill myself, which are like literally fucking side effects of antidepressants that are out there in the market right now. So I get it.
Yeah, I can see it too. And the thing is you could see, I hate using a slippery slope argument because that argument is a load of shit in a lot of ways. And never mind that politicians use that nonsense all the time. But the idea of like, oh, well, like you said, you could have some like teenage kid being like, yeah, this girl doesn't like me and I like her. And that kind of sucks. And then the next video is like you said, like, well, maybe if she just knew what a good guy you were, and then that might help. And then the next one is like, yeah, she knows you're a good guy. She doesn't give a shit because she likes bad boys. And then it just keeps, it goes, it's just a very gradual
Well, and then
move
in
into it.
somewhere along that line, it's like, it's probably because she's a slut who's on birth control, which disrupts the body's natural blah, blah, blah. And like, yeah, it's very.
Or she's very clearly a lesbian and those women are wrong, you know.
Yeah, and it's weird out there right now. These people have always been out there and they've always managed to find each other.
But they get a lot more traction now with being online.
Yeah.
So
and
that's the problem.
When you look at people, there's a handful of people who went QAnon and came back out and have done interviews and stuff. And it's like, there's definitely an element of like, these people have always been out there and they've always found each other. But what we're seeing now is they're like hooking people who would not have been one of those people without the explicit interference of like the internet being like, I'm going to show you something else on the algorithm I think you'll like, which is always funny for me because occasionally like the algorithm will advertise me the most insane thing I've ever seen. And then I feel like I have to like,
like I like going on TikTok for like, because some of it's just dumb and fun. And that sometimes I need that. But the problem is I get ads for religious shit all the time. I am an atheist. I don't want to see any of that shit. And I can't block it because as soon as you click on the profile, it's like, oh, you want more of that? Here's more of that. The things I've been getting recently are these things with these ads for some Christian thing where Gwen Stefani and Kevin James are promoting it. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? No. It's just, I don't know what it is. Somebody made a whole video about like, please stop sending me ads of Gwen Stefani trying to get me to read the Bible. Fuck that. I don't want to see it.
Oh, speaking of Kevin James, just a recommendation for the people tuning in and for you, Doug. If you haven't watched Kevin Can Fuck Himself.
Oh, I've seen it. That show is awesome. That turns that whole, and that's actually based on him.
On the actual show, yeah, because they literally did that in wasn't the reboot of King of Queens, but it was like, here's a new show with Kevin James. And then they had Leah Remini guest star, and they literally were like, oh, you guys have better chemistry, so we're just going to kill your wife and start the show over like we don't have to acknowledge that she's dead. That's a horribly traumatic thing to have happen. But yeah, that show's insane. And I thought it started a little slow, I'll be honest, but once it hooked me, it really hooked me. And my favorite thing about it, not enjoyable at all, but was like they would just play out a sitcom storyline and then let you see other people watch it happen. And nobody ever says that he's being abusive, or like nobody ever says anything, but you just see them react to it like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And it's so chilling because we've all sat around and watched these fucking shows and laughed at them and thought nothing of it, right? Or not laughed at them in the case of some of them. But anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Even more reason not to take Kevin James' advice on religion.
On anything, really. But yeah.
Paul Blart,
my God. All right. So Renee, this was fun. Next month we're going to be doing this, which is the Synanon fix on
research about this, and I feel like this is going to be a deep dive because we're going to watch the documentary. I've been listening to the Sunshine Place, which is a podcast that is put together by the daughter of one of these guys. We're talking about really novel and interesting ways to deal with drug addiction in the beginning. Like there was a lot of really interesting, good stuff going on, and then it got real fucking weird. And there's tons of celebrity cameos and beach parties and all kinds of shit. So we'll have a great.
Yeah. So this one, Wednesday, the first Wednesday of January is January 1st. We're not doing it that day, obviously. Ooh. So we're going to be doing it January 8th. We're going to be doing it here on where you see it now. And on that one, we will let you know where things are going to be. It might be you just see it the same place. We just might be using a different platform. We don't know yet, but we're working on that, and we will let you all know how that goes. So, yeah. Renee, thanks as always. I always enjoy doing this. It's always fun.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah. All right. See you next month, folks. Bye.